The man saved Daniel from the storm. 3 hours later, Daniel discovered human bones behind the cabin. Daniel Harper was halfway through Blackwood Forest when the rain started. Not a drizzle, not the kind of rain you wait out beneath a tree. This was a wall of water. Within minutes, the hiking trail disappeared beneath mud and running streams. The sky darkened. His phone lost signal. His GPS stopped loading. At first, Daniel wasn't worried. He had been hiking for years. People got turned around all the time. But after nearly an hour of walking, he realized he had a problem. The trail was gone. Completely gone. Every direction looked exactly the same. Tall pine trees stretched endlessly into the distance. The deeper he walked, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no insects, no distant sounds of traffic. Nothing. Just rain. Then he saw a light, a faint yellow glow between the trees. Relief flooded through him. Someone lived out here. Someone could help. Daniel hurried toward it. The cabin appeared suddenly through the rain. Old, weathered, almost hidden among the pines. Smoke rose from the chimney. Warm light spilled through a single window. Daniel knocked. The door opened immediately. An elderly man stood inside. Gray beard, thin frame, sharp blue eyes. The kind of eyes that seemed to notice everything.
"Lost?" the old man asked. Daniel laughed nervously. "Yeah." The old man stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze." The warmth felt incredible. A fire crackled inside the stone fireplace. A pot simmered on the stove. The smell made Daniel realize how hungry he was. The old man introduced himself as Walter. He claimed he had lived alone in the forest for nearly 40 years, away from people, away from cities, away from trouble.
Walter filled a bowl with stew and placed it in front of him. Daniel thanked him and started eating. The meat was surprisingly tender. Walter sat across from him, watching, smiling. Daniel noticed the old man wasn't eating. His own bowl sat untouched. "You aren't hungry?" Daniel asked. Walter smiled. "I already ate." Something about the answer bothered him. Not enough to stop eating, but enough to remember later. As the evening passed, Daniel noticed other strange things. No family photographs. No books. No decorations. No signs anyone actually lived there. The cabin felt temporary, like a place someone could abandon overnight. Eventually, Walter showed him a small guest room. "You can leave in the morning," he said. "Thank you." Walter smiled. Everybody says that. The words lingered in Daniel's mind long after the old man left. Sometime after midnight, a sound woke him. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Daniel sat upright. The sound came again. Slow, heavy, outside. He approached the window. His stomach tightened. Walter was dragging something wrapped in a tarp across the clearing. The shape underneath looked human. Daniel watched the old man drag it toward a small shed behind the cabin. Minutes later, Walter emerged empty-handed. As he crossed the clearing, he suddenly stopped. Slowly, he turned toward Daniel's window. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Walter smiled and walked back inside. Daniel barely slept. At sunrise, he decided he was leaving immediately. While packing his backpack, he accidentally knocked over a small wooden box hidden beneath a table. Paper spilled across the floor. Daniel bent down to gather them. His blood turned cold. Missing person posters.
Dozens of them. Men, women, teenagers. Years of disappearances. One poster belonged to a college student who had vanished only weeks earlier. Every poster had a red circle drawn around the victim's face.
A floorboard creaked behind him. Daniel looked up. Walter stood in the doorway, smiling. "Find anything interesting?" Walter asked. Daniel forced a laugh. "No." For a moment, Walter said nothing. Then he smiled wider. "Good." The old man eventually left the cabin carrying an axe. Daniel waited until he disappeared among the trees. Then he ran for the shed. The door was locked. A rusted shovel lay nearby. 3 hard swings shattered the lock. The smell hit him instantly. Rot, decay, death. Inside were backpacks, wallets, shoes, watches, personal belongings stacked from floor to ceiling. Human bones filled wooden crates, some old, some disturbingly fresh. Daniel staggered backward. Then he noticed a workbench. Several driver's licenses sat neatly arranged across it. One belonged to the missing college student. Another belonged to a woman who had disappeared 8 years earlier. Then he found a notebook. Daniel opened it. The first page contained names, dates, ages. The second page made his hands start shaking. Male, 31, lasted 17 days. Female, 24, lasted 12 days. Male, 42, escaped twice, caught twice. Daniel turned page after page. The entries continued for years. These weren't records of murders. They were records of captives. Walter had been keeping people alive, hunting them, studying them, treating them like animals. A sudden noise came from outside. Footsteps. Walter was back. Daniel dove behind a stack of crates. The shed door opened. Walter entered, dragging a young man whose wrists were bound with rope. The prisoner's face was bruised. His clothes were filthy. He looked half-starved. But he was alive. Walter dropped him onto the floor. The young man looked up. His eyes met Daniel's. For a split second, hope appeared on his face. Then Walter noticed. The old man's head slowly turned, directly toward Daniel's hiding place. A smile spread across his face. "Found you." Daniel exploded from behind the crates. The prisoner reacted instantly. He kicked Walter's legs out from beneath him. The old man crashed to the floor. "Run!" the prisoner screamed. The 2 men bolted from the shed. Branches whipped against their faces as they sprinted through the forest. Behind them came Walter's voice. Not angry, not shouting, laughing. Daniel had never heard anything more terrifying. The prisoner introduced himself between breaths. His name was Ryan. Walter had captured him 11 days earlier. 11 days! Daniel couldn't imagine surviving 11 hours. They ran until the cabin disappeared behind them. For a brief moment, Daniel thought they had escaped. Then Ryan stopped. A steel cable snapped tight around his ankle. He hit the ground hard. A hidden trap. Walter had prepared the forest. Of course he had.
Ryan desperately pulled at the cable. It wouldn't budge. "Go!" Ryan shouted. Daniel grabbed the cable and pulled. Nothing. "Go!" Walter's laughter echoed through the trees. Closer now. Much closer. Ryan shoved Daniel away. "Get help!" The last thing Daniel saw was Ryan picking up a broken branch like a weapon. Then Daniel ran, and he hated himself for it. For hours he crashed through the wilderness, exhausted, bleeding, terrified. Then finally he heard an engine, a road. Daniel burst from the trees directly in front of a park ranger's truck. The driver slammed on the brakes. Daniel collapsed. By nightfall, police, rangers, and emergency teams were heading into Blackwood Forest. Daniel told them everything. The cabin, the shed, the bones, the notebook, Ryan, everything. The search lasted 4 days. Hundreds of acres were examined. Then investigators found the cabin.
Or what remained of it. The building was empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no stove, no beds. Nothing. The shed was gone. Every trace of it. The clearing behind the cabin looked untouched, as though it had never existed. Police searched the surrounding area. No notebook, no bones, no Ryan, no Walter, nothing. The only evidence they recovered was buried beneath loose soil near the cabin. Several watches, jewelry, driver's licenses, personal belongings belonging to missing people. Enough evidence to prove Daniel had told the truth, but not enough to find Walter. Months passed. The case slowly disappeared from the news. Authorities believed Walter had fled after realizing police were coming. Daniel wasn't convinced.
One night, nearly a year later, he was watching a news report about 3 hikers who had vanished near a remote forest in another state. The reporter showed photographs provided by family members. Daniel nearly dropped his coffee. In the background of one photograph, standing among the trees, was an old man. Gray beard, thin frame, watching, smiling. The image disappeared after only a second. Nobody on the news mentioned him. Nobody seemed to notice. But Daniel knew. Walter hadn't run. He hadn't escaped. He hadn't gone into hiding. He had simply packed his things, moved to another forest, built another cabin, and started over. Because men like Walter don't stop. They relocate. And somewhere tonight, a lost traveler is probably following a warm light through the trees, believing they've just been rescued, when in reality, they've just been found.